Welcome everybody, this is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call. It is December 13. This is the last call in its normal status before the holiday break. So during the upcoming 3 weeks, we have a slide on this as well. We'll keep the call. You can join on the call, we can have a discussion, but it's more Q&A, ad hoc demos, discussions. So if you don't have anything to do within the upcoming weeks, or you want to have a great reason to drop away from whatever needs to be done, you can join on the calls and we can have a discussion on random topics now without any agenda. But we wanted to do this for the perspective that we would have hard time getting Microsoft demos within the upcoming 3 calls. And that's why we're having this kind of a bit of a different agenda. And I'll talk about that one a bit later today. Now, today, we'll have typical setup of repeating slides. We do apologize that we need to keep them there, but we intentionally want to keep them there because there's always new people within this calls. If you feel like, oh, you're always repeating things, join 15 past or 10 past, and you can actually get directly to the demos as well. Now, on the demo part, we have Patrick Rodgers doing using dynamic SVG images with Viva ACEs for business charts. And that's a really cool demo. I've seen that. Sample is also available to use dynamic SVGs to show dynamic relevant LOB data in a chart or in image format. Then Sébastien Levert is going to talk about introduction to Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. That is something which we announced 1.5 weeks ago, which is really, really cool feature helping any developers who's using Microsoft Graph to make the applications to react on unexpected situations. So maybe there's throttling, there's a network connectivity issue or whatever. You can actually mimic that within your application, and that's really, really cool. And then as the last demo today, we have Sreekanth and Jan talking about the introduction of Microsoft 365 App Compliance Automation Tool. So basically, as you are submitting your solutions to the App Source, if you're an ISV, there's a App Compliance Automation Tool to do checking and automation and all of that stuff. And they have all of the latest and what's available on that as part of that demo, which is really, really cool as well. Now, we will do a few typical slides. We do have currently 2 different YouTube channels. We are actually working on merging them to a single channel, which will make this slide a bit more logical because there is no reason why we would actually have 2 different YouTube channels. That's going to happen early next year, but the URLs and aka.ms addresses will be mapping properly as that happens. And we'll share more details around that one as the time is right. We also have a lot of open source assets available for you to take advantage in multiple different GitHub organizations, but as it might be difficult to find the relevant sample for your business scenario, we have also sample galleries. And these are basically surfacing the GitHub samples which have been provided by community or Microsoft employees for you to take advantage. And if you're wondering that there's too many URLs, too many things to remember, luckily there's only one, which is aka.ms M365 community, from where you can find all of the details around our community calls, videos, samples, and whatever come to mind. So everything is in a single one centralized location, including our blog, where we always release the recording details and all of that stuff related on these calls. Now, we do have quite a few different developer community calls happening. This one is the Tuesday 8 a.m. call, and this will happen as, well, every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. But again, for the upcoming 3 weeks, we will have a bit of a different Q&A style within these calls, but we don't want to cancel the calls either because we want to be here for you. So the main purpose of these calls is Microsoft to show you what is the art of possible within Microsoft 365, what's the latest and greatest, what you can do within the Microsoft 365. And the presenters on these calls are always Microsoft employees. Then we have a set of other community calls where we have monthly community calls for Identity Platform Office Settings, which are actually happening this week as well. And then Power Platform community call, I think it's happening next week, right, David? I'm just putting you on a spot. We're not canceling the next week's call on Power Platform, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So thank you for
confirming
correct.
That. We are not canceling.
Yes. Correct, we are not. Yes, I don't know what that means. No. So, of course, we don't want to cancel the call, even though it's closer to Christmas, because Power Platform has a lot of stuff to share as well. And then we have our Tuesday series, which is Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call, or the Viva Connection SharePoint Framework call, where we have community demos mainly in this call. So really showcasing the community, for community, what the community has done by themselves around the Microsoft 365 technologies. Now, we do provide you getting started assets for Microsoft 365. aka.ms M365 Dev Program is the #1 asset to get started. So register to that program and you will get a free E5 developer tenant. E5 means that that tenant has a lot of capabilities and options for you to get started. So it's not just a basic tenant, it actually has advanced scenarios on it, which is really, really cool. And then we also have the Microsoft Microsoft Learn material learning modules available at aka.ms M365 Dev and Learn. Now, we also have two different podcasts and video blogs, I guess that's the right way of saying that. One is Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast, hosted by Jeremy Fake and Paul Scheffelin, and the other one being Microsoft 365 PnP Weekly, hosted by yours truly, Vesa Juvonen and Waldeck Mastercards. And both of these typically have visitors, and they focus on what's happening within Microsoft 365 areas. Great things to subscribe and follow up as well. We also already mentioned the sample galleries. Our primary sample gallery, English is hard, gallery is at the aka.ms M365 samples, and this is where you can find all of the samples around Microsoft 365, Power Platform, Microsoft Graph, SharePoint Framework, and many more. Right now we are at 1,350 samples or so, and that number is growing all the time as we are sharing more samples in a GitHub as Microsoft or as our community is contributing samples to be available. Now, as you find a sample, you might be wondering, oh, how would I then use the sample? But luckily, we do got you covered, and David Warner is going to talk about what this is all about.
Excellent. Thank you, Vesa. Well, friends, especially if you're new, you may wonder, how do all these samples happen? Amazing folks like you. They're by the community, for the community, but we understand that using them, and in fact, hey, you're welcome to contribute back, update samples, new samples. We love to see all samples, can be a little bit frustrating. You might not know how to use GitHub. You might not understand how to use the different versions of SPFX with the different versions of Node. A variety of other things might cause problems for you. We want you to know that there is a program called Sharing is Caring that provides hands-on guidance. What this means is it's safe space live sessions that you can join with members of Microsoft, MVPs, other members of the community to learn how to utilize all these great features in the community. Safe space, so that means it's not recorded. You can ask any and all questions you'd like without the fear of it going on record, thinking, I should know this. Does everybody know it? Not at all. We want you to feel safe and empowered to do more in the community. These are all free. We've got new sessions scheduled out in January. We've got new proctors coming in, Derek Cash-Peterson and Emily Mancini, along with Hugo and April and I and the rest of the team. So definitely go get scheduled for those, aka.ms/sharingiscaring. We'd love to work with you in the community and empower you to do more. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. These events do get so much great feedback, so thank you for organizing them as well. Thank you, David, for that, and the rest of the Sharing is Caring team. Now, as mentioned already, within the upcoming weeks, this Tuesday call will be more as a coffee and tea. Of course, you can drink whatever is your preferred beverage in this course, and it's more like a Q&A style. So we do not have a specific agenda. We'll probably do an ad hoc demos, have a discussion with video on, and nothing. We probably do not even record those sessions. So it's more on, let's hang together. If somebody has some questions, if we're going to answer those questions, do live demos, all of that. That's kind of the idea here. We didn't want to cancel the calls, because again, canceling calls is really hard, because even though I would cancel the call, you would not get a cancellation notification on that one in your Outlook, because you probably downloaded the recurrent invite. So there's no kind of attraction on doing that. So we didn't want to actually do that. I'm working anyway 24/7, and I do not have any other friends than you. So I will be in this call 8 a.m. on Tuesday every single week. I guess that's my story of my life. Just kidding. But I will be definitely working on all of those weeks, and we will be here for you. Now, one thing what I wanted to promote, still, we mentioned this already a few times in the past as well, is the Microsoft Graph Satisfaction Survey. So please do answer on the survey, aka.ms Graph Satisfaction Survey, so we get more insights on what kind of things you like in Microsoft Graph, what would you like us to do more, and it's super important to us for know where we would be investing, because we are building the Microsoft Graph or all of the services and capabilities in Microsoft 365 for you to use, not for us to dictate what you should be using. Rather, the tooling itself is targeted for you. So please do take 5 minutes to complete the survey. That would mean a lot for us. So thank you for that. Now, on the news side of this week, we didn't have that many news from the marketing side published. So we did have two different news in the Microsoft Teams blog, and that was it from last week. So first of all, there was an update on the Modern Work Superheroes, and this is a community for modern work targeting for Microsoft Teams. And there was kind of a latest news related on that community, latest options, and a few more videos which were released by that community. And then there was the frontline workers using shared devices devices can now use Edge and Yammer apps on Android alongside Teams. And this is basically a shared device update. So if you have frontline workers who are sharing, for example, their Android phones during their work times, they can now more efficiently use also Edge and Yammer together with Teams within those devices. So really, really cool add-on capabilities for frontline workers for sure. Now, before we go to the Together mode picture and the demos, let's do a quick recap on what has happened in the Microsoft Teams platform documentation updates, and Surbhi is on the call to cover them.
Thank you, Vesa. Hi, everyone. So we've published a doc on Plan Analytics for Teams app. This document guides developers on the science behind app analytics, specific high-value metrics to track using HEART framework. The goal is to help developers improve adoption and retention of their apps and ultimately drive deeper user engagement. Along with the why and what to measure, we have also provided guidance on how developers can use Azure Monitor as one of the ways of implementing the analytics capture system. So please have a look, and this is what we had for you today. If you have any feedback or suggestion, please post on aka.ms Teams platform feedback. The link is available in the footer. You could also follow us on Twitter and configure to the RSS feeds to get regular platform updates. So thanks, Vesa. Over to you.
Excellent, thank you, Surbhi, on those updates. A lot of new stuff on the Microsoft Teams developer platform docs all the time. And I did enable the Together mode already, so let's do a quick group photo for those who are willing to enable their camera, and then we'll go to the actual demos of the day. So let me do that, and let me actually move this one in here. No, wait for a while. I will adjust things a bit. How do I adjust? From there. Okay, so we keep on flipping this order of these buttons all the time. This is so hard.
Gotta keep you guessing.
Yes. They keep on. Yeah, it's actually it is a good exercise. I will put the recording on. Give me 1 second. We still have few seats, and I can see, is that a squirrel on the mid row? I think it's a squirrel. Let me put the recording on. And 3, 2, 1, and let's do some hand framing. Everybody, we'll grab a GIF animation out of this and put it in the social media. Thank you for joining once again on the call. I can see a lot of family nice faces and reactions on the seats. Thanks everybody. Cool, awesome stuff. Good. We'll grab a GIF animation from there. But now let's move on the actual demos and stars of the day. And first of all, we'll start with Patrick, and then we go to the Sébastien Levert, and then Sreekanth and Yan Yin is going to do a demo related on the compliancy automation tool. But Patrick, I guess you are ready to go.
I am ready to go. Hello, everybody. There we go. So hopefully y'all can see my window there. So what we're going to talk about today is some dynamic SVGs in your ACE cards. So this is adaptive card extensions for SharePoint Framework, something we've talked about a few times in the past on these calls. And one of the things that has come up to us a lot is how do we put interactive images in our cards? So we've got a card here on our dashboard, and we've got this little neat step image. I'll just remind everybody, I am not a designer, but then we're going to look at the quick view. We've got a neat image here that is this little graph. And there's lots of ways to achieve these kind of things. You could have static images, of course, that's great. But we want to make them a little more dynamic, and we want to make them dynamic in a way that works in the adaptive card extension sort of framework or ideas. And that means making them, fairly lightweight, fairly small, and not taking up a ton of coding resources because, there could be 20 of these adaptive cards on the page. So we want to have a way to take data, bind it to an image, and then show that to our users. So for that, we've kind of seen this image. So let's go look at how it is done. So I'm going to switch over real quick to a different window, specifically this one. So I have here, this is just a scaffolded adaptive card extension project. You can see all the little files and everything there in the tree. So let's hide that. And what I've got here is the actual extension code. And if we look into this, this is pretty much boilerplate what you get when you set up the new project. I've got my card view, I've got my quick view. We've seen all those, but how do we make those dynamic images? So I'm going to pop over first to the card view. And this was that first card view. It had that little black sort of step icon on it. And you can have dynamic images in your card views if you'd like to do that. We've got here a function called get SVG. This could be in state, but stored in the state, so it could be refreshed. I didn't happen to do that in this demo, but down here you can see the function. Get SVG. And for those of you that aren't familiar with SVGs are really HTML-like markup. So they're a XML sort of extended markup language that you just describe the picture in, and that's how they scale and do all the great things they do. So we've just taken this SVG. Again, I'm a beautiful designer, so this is a very simple little couple of transforms, which are just little rectangles. And we use this little library here called SVG to tiny data URI. So you might be familiar that you can store SVG images as strings, as data strings, and that's how we use it here. So we have an image URL, we get our SVG, which is going to end up giving us back a string. And then this is where we could do any kind of processing we wanted in the card view. So we could have little dancing icons, we could do all sorts of fancy stuff there. So that's the first thing we wanted to look at was card views. SVGs, understanding they just consist of markup, and that we can convert that markup string into a data URI that we can bind into our card view and use. And so this is what are these called? The base image card view. It has that standard image URL property to it, and we're giving it as an image URL the actual data URI of this SVG, and it shows up as that image we saw before. So that's one way to do it here in the card view. But for quick views, we often want to show a little bit more information or bind this to actual data that maybe it updates more frequently. Maybe I can pick different options, sort and filter things and stuff like that. So we're going to use some of the similar concepts. This is the quick view. Let me show you the template real quick. Template is super simple. I've just got an image. This is my adaptive card template. I've got the body, and then I just have an image here that has a URL. Again, we're doing the same thing. We're converting this into a image URI. So all the image data is contained in that URI. Size is large, and then this other stuff here is, I think, was just part of the template. So the only thing I really added was this image. Drop that out of here, and let's look at the quick view code. This is just base adaptive card quick view, nothing fancy going on there. I've got a method here. So we've got the data method, which is normal, but then I've got a function get data, which is just creating this mock data for us. I didn't want to have this actually calling anything to have a bunch of external dependencies for the demo or for the sample code, but this could very easily be an async function that returns to you some data from an endpoint. Here I've got, this is businessy stuff. So I'm committed at risk, uncommitted upside, uncommitted, and these are all big dollar amounts, right? So obviously we're doing big business. We've got big dollar amounts. And then we've got a function here that I just grabbed from Stack Overflow. You can see the ref there. But this just converts big numbers into things that say like 5K, 1M for million, 2B for billion, something like that. But this is just sort of to make our graph a little prettier. And then the thing I've got down here is a function called generate chart SVG. And this actually is going to take data and then in our case here a title, because that's just the way we did this sample, and it's going to give us back a string. So again, we're getting back this data URI string. And then I'm using a really old trick of just creating an array and shoving strings into it. And so we're building up that SVG markup just as we did before, but now it's a little more dynamic. We can see how this can be done with a little more kind of code behind it. So here, this is, you can have style sheets in your SVGs. So this is a style sheet in this SVG that's giving us a heading, left heading, bar values, and legends, formatting that stuff. And then as well, we're pushing in, here's our title. It's got a class of heading. You can see our class there. So those classes are local within the SVG. You can also have the classes outside of the SVG and style it that way. Lots of ways to do that. We're dropping our title text in there. And then we come down to our data rows.map. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can see we're doing a bunch of math here, so we can create those bar charts and things like this. And so we're going to push all those things into our SVG. We're going to create those little bubbles we saw, and we'll jump back to that in a second. And then we're setting up our legends. And so all of this is calculated off of, our max value and 0. And then we, use those convert to international currency system. function. That was the thing, putting the M and the B and things after it like that. And then again, we use our SVG to tiny data URI. That's from a library, in fact, a mini SVG data URI. So if you want to use that, I've had good success with it in this sample. And then that gives us our SVG, and then we return that in the chart SVG value, which showed up there in our template. And so what that does is create this SVG dynamically, and then it allows you to control it. And so you might say, well, Patrick, why would you go to all this work? Why would you not just, and let me jump back to the other window. So we've got our card here, and we're going to click quick view. You can see this image here. So we've gotten some nice client-side rendering. It's super lightweight. I did a lot of research. We had some internal projects that started me down this path of looking at this, and they had some very specific templates. This was kind of one of them. It's changed a little bit from our internal thing, but basically this that they wanted to show. And in looking at, there's a bunch of generic SVG charting libraries out there in the world, and I certainly encourage you to have a look at them. But our needs weren't generic, and so we wanted something, again, thinking about adaptive cards and page weights and performance that was very simple. And so we just wanted to generate this chart, not any chart. And when you can restrict down your scope to something like that, you can much more easily then craft the code. And so we've looked at that image there, and I want to jump back to the code for just 1 second. And so what we've been able to do is create a function that binds to our data and produces that specific chart. And you can, in your own time, look through all the logic here and how we calculated the different percentages and things like that. We've got it all documented there. But so this could also imagine you could have several functions that do slightly different charts with the same data or different data. And when your needs are very specific, specific charts, specific images, specific graphics, I would highly recommend you take this kind of a specific approach to it. You're going to have better performance because you're not solving a generic case. You're going to end up with less dependencies in your code, and you're going to end up with much smaller code. Excuse me. So certainly encourage you to have a look at this sample. I think it's a great way to generate dynamic SVGs. So with that, I'll say please do check out this sample. And, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But I think it's a great sample, shows a nice technique for generating these SVGs in a way that fits into the adaptive card extension mindset of small and dynamic while keeping the performance and the page weight, or performance up, page weight down. So just good stuff to keep in mind. And I hope everybody found this useful. Thanks so much for the time.
Yes, excellent. Really, really cool stuff, Patrick. Awesome. So let's actually move into Seb. But Seb, we can see the screen. Take it away.
Awesome. You can see the screen. You can confirm that,
Yep.
Vesa.
All good.
Awesome.
We can see the screen.
The pleasure today of working on a single screen laptop. It's going to be an interesting demo. Today, you're going to have to wish me all very much of luck, because we're going to do one of the first live demo of the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. And when we say proxy, it means playing with my network capabilities while I'm doing the demo. So we're all crossing fingers that things go smooth. I tested it. It should work. But if you're losing me, just, I don't know, send a pigeon here or something like that. My name is Sébastien. I am a senior product manager on the Microsoft Graph Developer Experience team. You might have known me from the past around some capabilities around the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, but today I want to bring your attention to the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy that we released a week and a half ago during the European SharePoint conference as I think a really cool capability for pro developers that are building on top of Microsoft Graph. That is any type of devs from any type of language using or not using any of the SDKs we provide. So let's start by just going through what is the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. The Graph Dev Proxy is a CLI that simulates real-world behaviors of the Microsoft Graph, but locally. How many times have you been building an application that connects to Microsoft Graph, doing all the work on your own developer tenant, seeing all the beautiful pictures and users and having no issues. But when you push that to production, sometimes you're hit by the real world. Throttling might hit you, service issues might hit you. And we want to make sure that you get an understanding of these things are about to happen. And it's normal. We live in a cloud world, and that's the way that the cloud is working. So how can you simulate that? And that's what the Graph Dev Proxy really brings to the table, because it helps you and improves the quality of your application, because you hit these issues way, way, way before you used to hit these issues when you were building apps that are landing in production in large tenants. You can have the ability to generate throttling, to generate service errors, and to be able to react to them. So you don't necessarily need to generate a heavy load on Microsoft Graph itself. What you're going to have to do is to use the proxy, simply use the command line that we provide, and we will be intercepting calls to Graph where we're going to generate 429s, where we're going to generate 503s, which are, I would say, two of the most common errors we see on Graph. But you can also provide your own the own errors that you'd like to test against. You'll also be able to provide your own mocks. So when you say, I'm calling this endpoint on Graph, you will be able to test with local data. So it means that when we're going to see that query coming in, if you provided a mock for it, we will not be calling Graph. We will be returning the data that lives in the mocks folder. Why is that useful? Because now you will be able to test against a very specific scenario. You will be able to always know what's the results that will be coming back from the from Graph, and I think it's going to help you building quality in your app. This proxy works on Windows, on Mac, and on Linux. It also works with WSL. That's what I'm going to show today, and it's currently in a community preview state. So we're there for feedback. We're there to hear from the community on scenarios that you think you could use to build applications, to really increase the bar when you're building apps with the Microsoft Graph. So we've waited long enough. Let's go. Let's do a little bit of a demo here. Let's show you a little bit how all of these things can work all together. So let's do this. Let's bring that here, and let's start with this. So first, we launched a couple of days ago. I invite you to go and read in depth our launch blog post, all the material that sits next to it. I think you're going to definitely learn a lot about the Graph Dev Proxy. I have all the links at the end of the presentation. So I would say, let's start with this. I would love you to go on and do this. The second thing that I want you to do is to go and look at our repo. So I'm going to do aka.ms/graph/proxy. And this is where it might not work. It actually works. I'm happy. This is where playing with the network is tricky. You're going to see all of our Developer Proxy is an open source project available on the Microsoft Graph organization on GitHub. And you have all the how-tos, our manuals, our wiki is super, super, super detailed on all the different scenarios, all the different ways that you can use the Graph Proxy to deliver more quality applications. So it's open source, and this is where we need your feedback. Go into the repo, create issues. We're going to be more than happy to respond and to help with these issues. So now, demo time. Let's go here. Let me reload this page here, and let me go here. So what is the Dev Proxy? Dev Proxy is a CLI. It's installed globally on your machine, and I've done that before during the call today. And here you see that we have multiple ways that we can configure our proxy. In this case, we're going to launch the developer proxy on a specific port, which is 8080 in that case. we're going to ask the proxy to generate a failure rate of 50%. So every single request that are coming in is going to have a 50% chance of being treated as a failure, either a 429 or a 503. You can actually add your own. In this specific scenario, I'm just going to use a 429. But you could do any type of errors on Graph, and we're not going to provide any mocks. So it means that we're going to use Graph as our backing store. So when I'm going to run it, the proxy will go in listen mode. It's going to listen to all the Graph calls that are happening on my machine. And this is where it becomes tricky when you're on a Teams call, because Teams is actually calling Graph. So let's see how much of this is working and how much of this is not working. We tested it earlier. It worked great, so we'll see how that goes. So starting this, now it just says that I'm listening. I have it registered as a system-wide proxy on my machine, and now it's listening. So let's go on and let's try to see an example of an app that we built. So we are providing this sample. It's a very simple JavaScript sample. It doesn't just do JavaScript. The proxy is for any languages going to Graph. But in this specific scenario, we did it as a JavaScript app where you have the ability to test it with or without the Microsoft Graph SDK. We're going to start with without, with a very, very raw way to get data from Microsoft Graph, and where we're not really handling any errors, any throttling, any whatsoever. So we're expecting this app to potentially fail, right? So let's go to the without the SDK. Now I'm going to hit this. And now what you're going to see here is, first, you've seen that, and we're lucky here because we're in a 50% chance of generating failures. But the first time it hit, we're seeing three things that happen. The first thing is we intercepted that v1.0/users request. That's great. It means that the proxy works. Then it also means that the second thing, the green one, is a tip. We see that you're using Graph without an SDK. We highly suggest that you use the SDK to handle errors, to be able to pass in your own middlewares, to be able to have all the types, and so on and so forth. So we give you a tip on that query where you can go on and how can you move from the JavaScript fetch, for example, to the Microsoft Graph JavaScript SDK. And third, we failed a request. We failed a request with a 429. Here it says failed v1 users with too many requests. And here, as you can see, my app is totally broken. My app is not working. Maybe I would have never caught that when I develop on a simple developer tenant where there's no load, where I'm the only one developing there. Because here I basically just did a get on /users, but might fail sometime. Maybe Azure AD is under load, and then it would return a 429. But here you see my app is totally broken. Now if I reload, it might work. Actually, here you see, and now you see all the requests that came in, and that some went through, some did not, some were throttled, some were not throttled. And now you see that my app is kind of half working. I have errors on some images, potentially a 429, or maybe there's no image for that user. So it's working, but it's working potentially half the time. If I do another refresh, here it might take, this time it worked. Here you see we're literally throwing a dice and see, that's not what I wanted to do. Here, bang, again, it's broken. So it really depends on the percentage. It's a great way to do integration testing. And you can even force a 429 by going 100%. For example, all your queries would return 429, so that way you can test it. Now, if we do the exact same demo with the SDK, going here, now if I go back here, go down, there was some throttling. It goes on, it waits for all the calls to be done. So it doesn't mean that this is a great way of building it, but now my app is fully working. I have all of my pictures that are unavailable, that have been replaced by some sort of shimmers or avatars. And now we know that our app is will be a lot more successful when we're finally launching this app in a real tenant that will have tens of thousands of users using my application. Same thing with background processes, same thing with an Azure function calling in. Any type of capabilities you want to build could benefit from the Graph Developer Proxy. So let me go back to the slide just before I hand it over to you, Vesa. So what's next? A couple of things that we're working on around better cross-platform support. For example, right now, we're using enter to end our process. Might be easier to go with a Control-C, which is more standard across all the platforms. We want to support hybrid apps also. Apps that are calling both, for example, the Graph endpoints, but also some SharePoint endpoints. So you're going to be able to call in SharePoint with the Graph Developer Proxy and simulate the same type of errors. Talking about SharePoint and everything, we're going to also add support for rate limiting headers that SharePoint introduced on its endpoint. So you're going to be able to mock these and to generate failures on these to make sure your app works accordingly. We're also going to add more guidance on the API usage. For example, when you're doing a call to the API, for example, on users, and you do not provide a specific set of properties that you're expecting from Graph, we're going to tell you should not be using a get without a select. So you should be using it, and it will kind of be used as an advisor to your development techniques to make sure that you get the full value out of Graph, the best performance possible, the best error management possible. And finally, try it now. You can go on our repo, aka.ms/graph/proxy. And if you want to read the announcement, graph/proxy/launch.
Awesome stuff. I think there's a lot of excitement, which we can see from the reactions and in the chat as well. So really, really cool stuff. Awesome to get this one out. And there's the URLs, which and thank you, David, for copying those in the chat as well. Thank you, Seb.
Awesome. Cheers.
And then we'll move to Sreekanth and Jan related on introduction to Microsoft 365 App Compliance Automation Tool.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Vesa. Let me share my screen. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Nice talking to all you folks today. So thanks so much for the opportunity. So Microsoft 365 team introduced what we call as App Compliance Program for third-party developers to be able to get certified and to get secure and compliant. And this program was introduced about 3 years ago or so. What we have seen is our developers, our partners need a lot of help in getting to the certification. We also found that there is a way we can automate several of those processes. Like, for example, if there are controls around what's your firewall or what's your vulnerability scanning. So things like that. So there are quite a few controls which we can automate in the sense that if you give us access to your infrastructure, we can run a set of policies, set of controls, and we can identify whether you're compliant to those controls. So with that intent in mind, with the intent of actually automating your certification process, or with the intent of actually making it easier for you to get secure and compliant, and to actually share your data with your customers very easily of your compliance, we built a tool called the App Compliance Automation Tool, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of using this tool, both from your perspective as a developer and also from the end customer perspective, enterprise customers, and how it kind of helps you accelerate your adoption cycle. We're going to talk about that. And then we will do a very short demo. So what is the App Compliance Automation Tool? Our goal is ultimately to simplify the process of security and compliance. Our goal is to actually make sure that you are secure and compliant. What we've done here is we've used some of the core fundamentals of Azure Security Center and the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And we've let the app developer define the compliance boundary for an application. Once you define a compliance boundary for an application, we collect the compliance data, we run a set of policies, we collect the compliance data, and then we generate a compliance report. This report tells us and tells you exactly what are the controls that need to be fixed, what are the controls that need to more attention, and what are the things that you can do, what are the sequence of steps that you can follow to actually fix those controls. Once you actually meet those control requirements, we integrate the process with the overall certification, Microsoft 365 certification process in Partner Center. That way, we actually can get you compliant faster. We can also enable your enterprise customers see the certification status. We can also let them see all the compliance controls that you have satisfied. So that is the app compliance automation tool. Just to take a step back and think about what are we talking about when we talk about control automation, right? Our first-party products today satisfy about 1,200 odd controls. When we created this app compliance program 3 years ago or so, we identified a set of 110 controls which most enterprise customers want. They ask for any app developer to meet those controls. And what this tool does is it automates about 35-40% of those controls. And our goal is by early next year, we're going to automate about 40 odd controls. Right now, it automates about 35% today. The tool is in public preview, and I'll share all the documentation with you offline. I'll paste it on the chat thread. Before we see a quick demo, I want to reiterate some of the benefits. From an end customer standpoint, what do you get out of this tool, right? So it accelerates the compliance cycle, great, but it increases the trust. We actually provide a badge on the storefront against your app, saying that your app is certified. We actually let any sort of security and compliance admin see the control status, see the control details, and thereby it increases the trust and provides complete transparency into apps compliance status and the controls. From a solution builder perspective, ultimately our goal is to kind of get compliance integrated with your development cycle. So as we sort of build all of these tools to automate your compliance processes, we want to actually get to a state where your compliance, creating a compliant app becomes integrated with the development lifecycle. Let me actually play a quick demo, and hopefully you can hear the audio in the demo. I've actually shared the audio. If you cannot, please let me know. I'm just going to show you a quick demo of this particular tool. The App Compliance Automation tool for Microsoft 365 enables app developers to get secure and compliant and to achieve the Microsoft 365 certification. The tool is enabled as a service in Azure portal. You can start the process by creating a new compliance report. To do that, navigate to the Reports tab, click on Create New Report, provide a new report name, select the appropriate resources corresponding to your application. You can select resources based on subscription or resource group or additional filter criteria such as resource tags. Once you have selected all your resources, click on Add and confirm the process to create a new compliance report. Once the report has been created, you will be navigated to the Reports tab, where you will see the list of all your compliance reports and their certification statuses. Click on any report name to remediate specific controls that need to be fixed. You can filter for customer responsibility equal to failed to see all the controls which need to be fixed. For example, in this case, I need to fix the TLS configuration. To do that, I click on the Actions icon, look at all the resources which are unhealthy, look at the remediation steps, and take the corresponding actions to fix this resource. Once all the controls have been fixed, I can download the Microsoft 365 certification report and share it with my customers. The Microsoft 365 certification report will give a complete view into all the controls that have passed and the corresponding resource details. Hopefully that gave you a quick overview of the tool and how it is enabled as a service in the Azure. We have now started with apps which are built on the Azure, on our backend infrastructure on Azure. And as we go along in the next year, we will see a lot of enhancements to this release, where we're going to bring in apps from other clouds also. Let me show you how another quick demo of how we have taken this app compliance automation tool report and then integrated that with your certification process. Because right now we've created a report, as you saw in the PDF output, but how do you actually bring that in? How do you integrate that with the certification process is what this video is going to talk about.
In order to use App Compliance Automation Tool to achieve Microsoft 365 certification easily, you need to connect your report with your marketplace offer during the report creation process or modify the report settings later after creation. Once the report is connected with marketplace offer, you could use it easily in the initial documentation phase of app compliance in Partner Center. When you move to the next step control requirements phase, you could find that the controls which are automated by App Compliance Automation Tool are already approved by Certification Reviewer. You only need to focus on remaining controls.
Okay, so that gives you a quick highlight of how the automation process is actually integrated with the certification step. Yeah, that covers pretty much a very quick overview of the tool, and I'm happy to take on any questions. Let me go back to the slide share mode and then take on any questions from the team.
When this is in preview, is a question for Mike. Is this already out?
Yeah, this is already in preview. Let me share the documentation link here on the chat thread, or actually we can email all the, if there is a package going out with all the emails, with all the documentation, I can send that. I actually put the link to the documentation right here.
Yep, we'll put it in the blog post, which will be shared in the social media. So not only for the attendees, but also for the rest of the community. Good. Now, Kim is asking for the app compliance, how come passing threshold not revealed? Not quite sure what that question is all about. Did I miss that one?
Does that mean what is the minimum number of controls that need to be set?
And thank you, Gertrude is the first name. Sorry, and Kim is the last name. But can you clarify the question? So in that page, it says you're not required to comply with the controls within this Microsoft 365 certification. So okay, so there's a note. Yeah, we'll need to come back on probably on that one, or Sreekanth.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think there is a certain number of controls, but to be satisfied, I think there is a complexity around what I've heard, and I'm not in the certification team, but I've heard that from the PMs that there is a complexity here around like different combinations. If you're running Azure PaaS versus IaaS, for example, what is the thresholds would be like very different. So that's why they've actually, maybe that's why they have not mentioned it, but I think that's something that I can come back and discuss with the right PM and come back. So let me take that action item.
Thank you, Gretchen, on the question, and thank you, Sreekanth, on following up on that. Let's see if we can get it on the blog post notes later on. Any other questions? Not at least on the chat. So let me do this. Let me share my screen. We will still give an opportunity for people to ask questions. We have 9 minutes before we officially close the call. But if I don't see any questions on the chat for any of the demos what you saw today or any other things, we can certainly close a bit early. That's actually really, really good to have a bit of a break between the meetings and follow up on things. And going once and going second and going third time. And I guess that's it then. So thank you, Patrick Rodgers. Thank you, Sébastien Levert. Thank you, Sreekanth. And I guess Jan Yin was the demo in the recorded demo on the setup. Thank you for the great demos, really, really cool. The recording of this community call will be available within the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel within 24 hours. So just a reminder, you cannot download the recording directly from the chat, even though it kind of implies that you could, but you cannot as an external person. So that's why we are publishing that in the YouTube channel within 24 hours. If you subscribe on the channel, you will know exactly when the video is available, or follow us on Twitter to be notified when there's the new stuff available. available. The next Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call is on December 20th. That is the without agenda call. So we'll be basically meeting up with people, and let's see how many people will show up, and we'll have a discussion on whatever comes to mind, hopefully related on technology, but we can of course touch whatever other topics as well. All of the community calls, the other community calls, by the way, Thursday ones will be executing normally. So we do have community demos queued up for all of the upcoming weeks across the holiday season, which is awesome. So we have a lot of community demos available within those calls as well. So that's the Thursday 7 a.m. series. But other than that, really cool demos today. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you all of the great engagement in the chat as well. Please keep the feedback coming. We are building Microsoft 365 for you. So your inputs, your findings, your suggestions and ideas are super critical for us to succeed within this journey. Thanks everybody. Let's stay in touch, stay healthy, enjoy the holiday period, and take some time to rest as well. Thanks everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.